Welcome back, chess lovers, to a journey back in time, specifically to the foggy, gaslit streets of London in the autumn of 1912. Today, we are not just looking at a game of chess. We are witnessing a work of art, a geometric miracle that has been whispered about in chess clubs for over a century. This is the immortal Fatal Attraction game. On the white side of the board, we have Edward Lasker. Now, do not confuse him with the then world champion Emanuel Lasker. Edward was a distant relative, an engineer by trade, but a master tactician who possessed a terrifying ability to calculate deep, complex combinations. On the black side, we have Sir George Alan Thomas, a man of immense talent who was not only a British chess champion but also a semi-finalist at Wimbledon in tennis and a champion in badminton. He was a true sportsman. But on this day, at the City of London Chess Club, his sportsmanship would be tested in the most brutal, yet beautiful way imaginable. What makes this game so special? It features a king hunt. Usually, a checkmate happens when the king is trapped in a corner surrounded by his own defenders. But in this game, we are going to see a king dragged from the safety of his fortress, forced to march square by square across the entire board, into the heart of the enemy camp, until he meets his end on the other side of the world. It is one of the most elegant, forcing sequences ever played. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into the mind of Edward Lasker. The game begins with Lasker playing the white pieces. He opens by pushing his pawn to d4. This is a solid, classical opening, staking a claim in the center and opening lines for his bishop and queen. Sir George Thomas responds with pawn to e6. This is a flexible move, often leading to the French defense or, as we will see here, a Dutch defense setup. Lasker continues his development naturally, bringing his knight to f3, controlling the center and supporting the d4 pawn. Here, Thomas reveals his aggressive intentions. He pushes his pawn to f5. This characterizes the Dutch defense. The idea is to control the e4 square and create an unbalanced game where black can play for a win. However, moving the f-pawn early comes with a significant risk. It slightly weakens the king's position by opening the diagonal leading to the king. Lasker immediately spots a chance to fight for that key e4 square. He develops his knight to c3. He wants to push his own pawn to e4 to blow the center open. Thomas plays knight to f6, developing a piece and clamping down further on the e4 square. The battle lines are drawn early. Both players are fighting for control of that single central square. Lasker now plays a very pointed move, bishop to g5. He pins the black knight to the queen. This is annoying for black. If the knight moves, the queen is lost. Thomas decides to unpin immediately by bringing his bishop to e7. Lasker, having provoked this, decides to clarify the situation. He captures the knight, bishop takes f6. Thomas recaptures with the bishop takes f6. Why did Lasker give up his bishop pair so early? It was all for a specific strategic goal: control of e4. Now that the black knight, the primary defender of that square, is gone, Lasker strikes. He pushes his pawn to e4. The center is now fluid. Thomas accepts the challenge and captures the pawn. Pawn takes e4. And now, Lasker's knight hops into the center. Knight takes e4. Look at that white knight on e4. It is beautifully placed. It radiates power in all directions. To challenge this, Thomas plays pawn to b6. His plan is to put his light-squared bishop on b7 to control the long diagonal. It's a sensible, positional idea, but it is a bit slow. And against a tactician like Lasker, slow can be fatal. Lasker continues to improve his pieces. He plays knight to e5. Now, look at the board. White has two centralized knights, one on e4 and one on e5. They are like octopuses, their tentacles reaching into the black position. Thomas continues with his plan, castling kingside. Short castle, his king looks safe, tucked away behind a wall of pawns. Or so it seems. Lasker now develops his light-squared bishop to d3. This is a very aggressive square. The bishop is pointing like a sniper rifle directly at the h7 pawn, right in front of the black king. Thomas finishes his development by placing his bishop on b7. The board looks relatively balanced. Black has a solid position, and white has active pieces. But now, the storm clouds gather. Lasker brings his heavy artillery into the game. Queen to h5. This is a direct, undeniable threat. The queen is eyeing the h7 pawn, and she is supported by the knight on g5 and the bishop on d3. Suddenly, the black king is feeling the heat. Thomas analyzes the position. He sees the pressure, but he believes he has everything under control. He plays queen to e7. This seems like a perfectly normal move. It connects the rooks, it defends the second rank, and it prepares to bring more pieces into the defense. But in reality, this is the decisive error. This move seals the black king's fate because it inadvertently blocks the f8 square, a square the king might have needed to escape. The stage is set. The trap is sprung. Edward Lasker now plays a move that has echoed through history, a move of such brilliance that it makes you question if he calculated it all or if he was guided by a divine muse. Queen takes h7. Check. Wait, what? He just gave up his queen. The most powerful piece on the board, sacrificed for a single pawn. This is the definition of a bolt from the blue. The crowd at the City of London Chess Club must have gasped. Why would he do this? Thomas has no choice. He cannot refuse the gift. The king is in check, and the only legal move is to capture the queen. So, king takes h7. Now, the king stands on h7, exposed. And Lasker begins the hunt. He plays knight takes f6. Double check. This is the power of the discovered check. The knight moves, delivering check itself. But in moving, it unveils the bishop on d3, which also delivers check. The king is hit from two angles simultaneously. When you are in a double check, you cannot block, and you cannot capture. The king must move. Thomas looks for a safe square. If he goes back to h8, he gets checkmated immediately by the knight on g6. So, the king is forced forward. King to h6. The king is now stepping out of his fortress, entering the dangerous open fields of the middle game. Lasker is relentless. He plays knight from e5 to g4. Check. The knights are coordinating beautifully. They are cutting off the retreat squares. The king cannot go back to h7 because of the bishop. He cannot go to h5 because of the other knight. He is forced to march forward again, king to g5. Can you believe this? The black king is now on the 5th rank, completely surrounded by white pieces, yet he is still alive. But Lasker gives him no time to breathe. He brings the infantry into the attack, pawn to h4. Check. The king is running out of options. He cannot take the pawn because the rook on h1 defends it. He cannot step aside. He must continue his death march into the enemy territory, king to f4. The king is now on the same rank as the white pawns. It's absurd. It looks like a glitch in the matrix. Lasker continues the assault, pawn to g3. Check. Once again, every single square behind the king is covered. He cannot retreat. The white pieces form a net that only opens forward. The king must advance. King to f3. He is now on the 3rd rank. He is deep inside white's territory. He is standing where white's pieces usually develop. And still, the checks keep coming. Lasker plays bishop to e2. Check. This is getting claustrophobic. The king is being squeezed. He moves to g2. He is now standing on the 2nd rank of the white side. He is threatening the white rook, but he is utterly helpless. Lasker now brings the rook into the game. Rook to h2, check. The king has only one square left on the entire board, one single square. He steps to g1. Take a moment to visualize this. The black king, who started on e8, castled to g8, has been forced to walk step by step, h7, h6, g5, f4, f3, g2, and finally g1. He is standing where the white king should be. He has crossed the entire battlefield, alone, naked, and surrounded. The king is on g1, the white king is on e1, the black king is effectively trapped against the back wall of the opponent's camp. And now, for the final, elegant touch. Lasker has a choice here. He could castle long castles queenside, which would deliver a discovered checkmate from the rook on d1. That would have been spectacular. But Lasker plays something perhaps even more artistic in its simplicity. He plays king to d2, checkmate. Look at that final position. It is pure harmony. The white king moves quietly to d2, and in doing so, he unmasks the rook on d1. The rook shoots down the d-file and cuts across the board. The black king on g1 has nowhere to go. The h2 rook covers the h-file and the 2nd rank. The bishop covers f1. the king is entombed. Legend has it that after this move, Sir George Thomas, the gentleman sportsman, stood up, extended his hand to Edward Lasker, and said, "This was the most beautiful game I have ever played." And he lost it. This game is a testament to the power of calculation and the geometry of the chessboard. It shows us that material, even a queen, is secondary to the activity of the pieces and the safety of the king. Lasker sacrificed his most valuable asset to initiate a combination that required 7 consecutive forcing moves, seeing the end clearly before he even lifted his queen. It was a masterpiece of coordination. The knights, the bishops, the pawns, and finally the rooks and even the White King himself, every single piece on the board participated in dragging the enemy monarch to his doom. It remains one of the finest examples of a king hunt in the history of the game. Thank you so much for joining me for this incredible journey through chess history. If you enjoyed this walkthrough of the Fatal Attraction game, please do leave a like. It really helps the channel, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing chess stories and game analyses. Until next time, keep playing, and keep your kings safe.